Then what are the things that you should know not to do when you do a majority attack? Well, here's an example. That's basically the game that was played between Tarash and Spielman. So Spielman was playing in the previous game, and we very naturally so he outplayed Teichmann. So in this game, he lost versus Siegbert Tarash, and it's interesting to see why he lost. Okay, so after d4, d5, knight f3, c5, we have the very same approach, c4, e6. Okay, now that's a little scary to play the Tarash defense versus the Siegbert Tarash himself. But Black had the guts to play it, and, well, he regretted afterwards, but anyway. After knight f6, knight c3, knight c6, bishop d3, pawn takes pawn, bishop takes c4, and after a6 castling, pawn to b5. Now, actually, after white played bishop to the d3, bishop b7, a very important difference to the previous game that we saw is that white didn't retreat his bishop back to e2, but he actually placed it on the c2 square. Now, initially, we can get the idea that this move should be worse because it goes straight on the way of how Black's pawn should push. But it also includes an important positional trap. The thing is that by pushing the pawn up to b4 right now, and then basically getting to attack on the queen side right now, Black isn't going to be able to make that many threats, and white has a very solid way of locking up, blockading what Black has on the queen side. While this light square bishop on the c2 will be very essential for the activity he'll make in the center and the queen and the king side. However, but that doesn't have so much to do with the Black own attack in meaning of where he went wrong, right? We want to see exactly where he went wrong, what happened, then come back and see what could have been played in a better way. So Black did knight a5, and after knight takes f6, queen takes f6, very much like in the previous example, he tried to immediately restrict white, make some pressure. He pushed his own bishop to b4, and for the moment those pawns and the pieces really look very, very scary. But shortly after the bishop came up to b4, and then white did bishop to g5, queen to g6, white simply came down there with his own bishop on d2. So at this moment we realized that Black's whole strategy in the queen side was a complete failure. Now, why is that so? There's no reason why he should be losing, right? Why should we consider it to be a complete failure? Well, it's pretty simple. It's because if now Black exchanges with bishop takes to d2, queen takes d2 as it happened in the game, there was really nothing left as an advantage or any other feature that Black has on the queen side. Okay, he's got that pawn on b3, but I wouldn't particularly call it strong. Let's not forget that the bishop can easily move through the e4 square when white gets it ready, and that pawn will only be a cause of another weakness that he's going to have, that Black is going to have, and that's the c4 that doesn't seem defended. See, this is essentially important, and I have to say, after 17, bishop to d2, bishop takes to d2, and then queen takes to the d2, and that's what came in the game. Even knight c6 wouldn't have held because of the d5, and the position would open while Black's king is still in the middle. So bishop takes d2, queen takes to d2, knight down to c6, d5, and when that knight really comes back to b8, as in this way, white's just going to move on with knight to e5, and he's just going to capture the c4, and there's knight d6 as a continuation, and it's pretty big what white can do. Knight b6, so he attacks the rook, he attacks the pawn, he takes the pawn, and the game ended up quickly. I mean, after that f5, rook takes b3, and that was the end for Black. Queen f7, trying to go back and defend. But white just played rook to d3, and I mean, it's not so interesting right now because obviously it's all over. Actually, no. Essentially, when Black played f5, white first even took on the f5 just to simplify things. Now, when you're winning or when you get to win material or create a weakness or something like that, you want to usually stabilize. So for one moment, e takes f5 was a good thing to do, and that was now. So there was e takes f, e takes d, rook takes b3, then there is rook to d3 to exert some extra pressure to the d5, and okay, now that's losing. I believe it wasn't much necessary for us to go through the whole thing, but I just wanted to show you this so you can see what happened with black. And now let's get back. I mean, the most interesting part of this is where did it all go wrong? I mean, he was so good at one moment, and it didn't look so bad. Well, I think the b4 move was alright, but the knight a5 move was a little too optimistic. See, when a flank attack starts, no matter whether it's pawn majority or any sort of another kind of flank attack, we need to understand that except if we don't have an immediate opportunity to dominate our opponent or win material or something else, we need that development, that preparation, that piece interaction on that area. So when we start or do these moves like knight a5, we'll know that they will be prepared. They will be ready. That was the problem about the move knight a5 in particular. Black should have just played the move of bishop to e7. Now in the previous example we had this excellent restriction, and we know that the opponent now doesn't have any prospect to go for it. But in general, anytime when you're beginning a quick flank or majority attack and you believe it's great, remember to look at what your opponent's prospects will be, because it's easy to make a mistake, like to think about that bishop e2 is like bishop c2. But if you look carefully, you'll find out that the difference is huge. Black couldn't dominate white for long enough. And so here a move like bishop e7 would have certainly proved much more useful. Queen to e2, and then eventually there is rook to c8. If white trades, then we're going to have the ability to take back with our bishop. And if he doesn't trade, we'll simply complete our development with queen to b6. The position would be decent, easy to follow, and without any problems. This pawn doesn't even hang because of knight takes d, and the bishop can hang. So you have to remember that the flank attack depends mostly on the preparation. Having a good skeleton there and restriction is great, but that's only temporarily. So you need to have strong power and value in order to rely on something better. One of the things that you can do is, like, if you find moves like b5, b4, c4, a quick approach to advance out there, ask yourself, do I have enough preparation? Am I ready? Do my pieces really have the support to these pawns? If the answer of some of these questions is negative, then you may want to take a little time and complete your development, get ready, and then advance. Of course, it may be a little harder afterwards, but you won't risk your position. So despite the time and the difficulty, you will much more prefer to begin this attack when you are ready, rather than risk to get into something that, like what happened with white in this game, with black in that game. So that's basically my conclusion to what you have to keep in mind when it comes to the correct and incorrect of leading a majority or any sort of a flank attack in general.